in the trees, reason to live, living to please. The sky is the only roof I have over my head, and when I'm weary, Mother Nature makes me a bed. I'm just going along as I please, breezing along with the breeze.
Come with us down a highway of memories with Rita Farrell and Merv Griffin. And starring Ohio's own Joe E. Brown as the man who saw it all.
Oh, hello. I was just about to take a stroll down memory lane. Join me? Remember, well, you remember the peerless automobile and the horn. And remember the trouble we had getting in? And surely you remember the pork pie hat. And the Baker Electric 23 Skidoo, Jean Big Pole Sitters, Al Capone, four-wheel brakes, thermometer in the radiator cap, Stanley steamer, Presto light, shaving a hair, side curtains, gray enemy, adjust the wheel, Charlie, my boy. Yes, we have no bananas. Surely you remember. You were there. We lived it. Remember?
This is Warren Guthrie welcoming you to a special Sohio presentation. We invite you to step back through the years with us then to quainter, quieter days, days when the first faint rumblings of the automotive revolution were beginning to be heard in the alleys behind the main streets of all America. Did I say the rumblings of a revolution? Actually, it was a wheezing, sputtering, coughing sound, and nowhere did it reach such a crescendo as in Ohio, where men like Alex Winton, Windsor White, Eddie Rickenbacker, Charles Kettering, Frank Seiberling, the Fisher Brothers, the Studebakers, John Willis, Ward Packard, and a host of others heard the sound and found it impelling and irresistible. About the year 1898, in a little shop off Madison Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio, an automobile sale is in progress. The seller and manufacturer, Alex Winton, is the first man in the world to sell an automobile, and if he sells to the present prospect, a young electrical engineer from Warren, Ohio, it will be Winton's 12th sale.
I don't know, Winton. That suspension system doesn't look so good to me.
It's good enough to carry me from here to New York in
78 hours, 43 minutes. But that was a year ago. You can't live on that stunt the rest of your life.
Young man, it wasn't a stunt. It was a demonstration of the dependability of Winton automobiles.
Yeah. How much horsepower you say she develops?
5 horsepower.
5 horsepower, eh? And that's all you can get out of it?
Better than anybody else can do right now.
What do you mean, right now?
I mean with the gasolines we have right now. When the oil people understand that gasoline will outsell coal oil one of these days, maybe they'll give us a better fuel.
Until then, you'll just blame the fuel for poor performance.
Look, son, if you think you can build a better automobile, why don't you try it?
You know, Winton, I think I'll just do that.
And well, let me know how you make out, Mr. What did you say your name was?
Packard. J.W. Packard. And I won't have to let you know, Mr. Winton. My customers will tell you.
James Ward Packard went back to Warren, Ohio, and made good his boast. In this building, he produced the first Packard automobile. It was a remarkable automobile, and its fame was soon nationwide. Its single cylinder developed 12 horsepower. It had a chain drive and the transmission 3 speeds forward. Packard soon had more orders for his cars than he could possibly fill, and that may explain his seeming indifference one day about 1900 when he was busy in the shop.
Mr. Packard, there's a man out front says he wants to buy a car.
I can't see him. I'm busy.
But he's come a long way to talk to you. He looks important.
If he wants to know anything about a Packard, tell him, tell him to ask the man who owns one.
Later, Packard sold his whole operation, lock, stock, barrel, and slogan, to a group of manufacturers from Detroit. Meanwhile, as Alex Winton had foreseen, the oil industry, which up until that time had frequently thrown gasoline away, was trying to develop a motor fuel which would meet the needs of the automobile engine. For then as now, an engine was no better than the fuel it burns. And the improvements came both in fuels and in cars. By 1905, Alex Winton's car had taken on 4 cylinders, and they produced a whopping 40 horsepower. Winton was far and away the most important of the car manufacturers, but there was plenty of competition. There was the Franklin, the car beautiful. The Elmore, made in Clyde, Ohio. The exclusive and imperious Duryea. The Cadillac Runabout. And the dashing Rio touring car. But the hottest car of the year 1905 turned out to be a snappy little number known as the Curve Oldsmobile. Its advertising claimed that science had made it mechanically perfect, presupposing brains in its owner, which presumably in that day was a safe assumption. The Oldsmobile got a tremendous boost when Gus Edwards' famous song swept the nation. People swarmed into Oldsmobile showrooms asking to see the Merry Oldsmobile. Usually they came in just to look, but they had overlooked that phenomenon of American enterprise, the salesman.
Now you're looking at her, folks. That's the car that's got all America singing. Did you ever see anything like her? How about those lines?
Well, we got no intention of buying it, and we're just looking.
That's all right. Perfectly all right. What you driving now?
Oh, I got a dapple mare and a Columbus buggy.
Well, you'll find this Oldsmobile a lot more economical to operate, and she gives you 12 times the power. Besides, you don't have to go out in the pasture to catch her every time you want to go somewhere. 10 miles on a gallon of gas, and she'll do 30 miles an hour.
Oh, George, stand away from it.
Oh, dear, now there's nothing to worry about. Is there?
Oh, no, it's safest car on the road. Here, step right in. Try the seat. Step right in there.
Don't mind if I do.
There you are. Great, huh? Nothing quite like her. Once you get the tiller, that Oldsmobile in your hand, and feel that 12 horsepower behind you. Can't you just picture yourself driving along the road in an Oldsmobile, the wind a-whistling, the clouds of dust a-flying, of course, behind you, chickens coming out to see what's going on the road?
Come away with me, Lucille, in my merry Oldsmobile. Down the road of life we'll fly, automobiling you and I. To the church we'll swiftly steal, then our wedding bells will peal. You can go as far as you like with me in my merry Oldsmobile, in my merry Oldsmobile.
Hardly had the strains of Merry Oldsmobile died out when another automobile song hit the vaudeville stages of the nation. It was a popular act, for it featured a real automobile on the stage and fundamental truth in the lyrics.
He'd have to get out and get under to fix his little machine.
I was just dying to cuddle my queen, but every minute when I'd begin it, he'd have to get under, get out and get under. Then he'd get back at the wheel. A dozen times we'd start to hug and kiss, and then the darn old engine hit with missing. Then he'd have to get under, get out and get under, and fix up his automobile, and fix up his automobile.
By 1912, the Standard Oil Company and others had developed the cracking process, a method which not only provided better gasoline for better engines, but also increased yield of gasoline per barrel of crude, up from 10 to 15% to almost 50%. The cracking process was the result of organized research, investigation, and experimentation carried on by petroleum scientists. By 1912, the automobile was just about ready to exert its full force on life in these United States. The reason? Well, let's see.
No, there ain't nothing at all to starting her up. Here, I'll show you. Oh, excuse me. Now, first you set the spark lever up to about 9 o'clock. So, then the gas to about 3 o'clock. Then you turn on the magneto. There, you got that?
Got it.
Okay, now watch me, right around here. Now you put your finger through the choke wire loop, thus. And with your right hand, you grasp the crank. Of course, you can feel when she's all engaged and ready to turn over. Now, you pull out the loop and give her a spin. Yeah, well, that's the idea, but anyway, now, try it once more. Here we are. Spin! Yes. Well, away we go. You know, there's an old saying, if first you don't succeed, why, up we go again. There you are. You see, there's nothing to... Well, here we go. Of course, this time you don't pull it out so far because you're liable to flood it. Now, there you are. You see, there's nothing to start it at all. Well, easy come, easy go, I say.
But 1912 was a year of sensations in the automobile industry. Cadillac introduced the first self-starter. And by the next year...
I understand your automobile is now equipped with a self-starting device.
Yes, indeed, sir. A remarkable invention. Remarkable.
Invented by an Ohioan, I believe.
That is correct, sir. Remarkably clever, these Ohioans. Mechanic by the name of Kettering developed it. Shall we proceed with the demonstration, sir?
By all means.
If you please. Now, the usual adjustments. So, then place your foot on the button. Oh, yes. So, and exert pressure. Really very clever, eh? Would you care to try it, madame?
That will not be necessary. Deliver it to this address.
Ah, yes, thank you.
Yes, 1912 was a year of revolutions. Thanks greatly to the self-starter, the automobile became an acceptable vehicle in society, and 356,000 cars were sold in that year. It brought total registration in the country up to almost 1 million. With 1 million hungry tanks to fill, the oil industry was pressed to find adequate supplies of crude. But even more important was the problem of distribution. Oh, the average hardware store kept a couple of wooden barrels of gasoline, a safe distance to the rear, and a blacksmith shop could frequently take care of the stranded motorist, that is, if he brought his own can. In those cases, though, it was always wise to strain the gasoline through a chamois or through a very fine wire screen. But out in Pataskala, Ohio, in an area between Newark and Columbus, where even hardware stores and blacksmith shops were few and far between, a new idea was born, again in the year 1912. But let's learn about it firsthand.
Well, sir, of course, for a while, you'll have to carry spare gas. But it won't be long before you'll be able to buy it any place. Well, you know, right now, down in Columbus, there's a store that don't do nothing but sell gas and oil. Yes, sir, a genuine gasoline store that don't do nothing but cater to motorists. I'll never forget the first time I drove up.
What'd you stop out here for, mister? You're supposed to drive on in.
In? I never heard of such a thing.
Well, you're hearing of it now. This is a gasoline store, mister, special for autos. All we sell here is gas and oil and a few odds and ends that you car owners need.
Hey, that's what I call service. Too bad we ain't got more of these kind of places.
This is only the beginning, mister. Why, one of these days there are going to be stores like this all over town. And maybe some even out on country roads someday. Hey, you mark my words.
Don't cost nothing to dream. Well, I'll drive in and you can give me oh, shucks. Fill her up.
That was the first gas station in the world. a significant Ohio and Sohio milestone. But as Harvey Wickliffe had foreseen, soon gas stations sprang up like mushrooms along the nation's highways. 1913 saw the birth of Wildurant Chevrolet. Because of its beautiful lines, fine performance, and low cost, it soon began to be talked of as a possible rival to the Model T. Then came the Dodge with the detachable winter top. And the smart new American underslung, a beauty. And the Maxwell at $655 was something to write home about. Then came the 20s, the era of wonderful nonsense, the Charleston, the hip flask. Better gasolines had led to faster, more powerful automobiles. And as the 20s opened, the younger set argued the relative merits of the Jordan Playboy, the Stutz Bearcat, and the Mercer Raceabout.
Oh, baby, look at this beauty. Hey, Bob.
Yep.
How many horses she pack?
Oh, 22 and a half. 4 forward speeds. And she'll do better than a 70 mph. Champion light car, that's what we call it.
A real champ, huh, baby?
It'll do.
Listen, how much would this set us back?
$32.50 and she's yours. And worth every nickel of it. Here, come here a minute. Just look at that upholstery. Genuine leather. Solid mahogany instrument panel. And here, here's something for you. The motometer.
A what?
This thing here. Got a thermometer right in the radiator cap. When the red line gets up into the circle, then it's time to cool her off.
Really burns up the road, huh?
I'll say she does. Ain't she sweet?
Ain't she sweet? See you coming down the street. Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet?
Ain't she nice? Look her over once or twice.
Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Just cast an eye.
Just cast an eye
in her direction. Oh me, oh my.
Oh me, oh my.
Ain't that perfection? I repeat, don't you think that's kind of neat? And I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet?
The era of wonderful nonsense it was, but it was also the era of wonderful achievement. Four-wheel brakes, twin camshafts, overhead valves, hemispherical combustion chambers, ever higher compression ratios, all made possible by an incident that occurred in Dayton, Ohio. Incident? No, it was more than that. It was research. The problem to find out what caused gasoline engines to knock. Knock meant pre-ignition, loss of power, lower efficiency. In Charles Kettering's Delco laboratories, Thomas Midgley seeks the cause of engine knock. He suspects the gasoline. He tries adding chemicals to the fuel, hoping to find something that will eliminate knock. Weeks and months go by. Kettering stops in from time to time to add a word of advice and encouragement.
Well, got any leads yet, Tom?
Well, nothing concrete, just wild guesses. I've got one of them about ready to go.
Oh, what's that?
Well, it's born of desperation, I guess, but I got to thinking the trailing arbutus plant blooms even when it's covered with snow. Now, do you know why that is?
Well, it has a red leaf, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose it absorbs heat.
Well, now, that's my reason. And I thought if we could find some kind of a dye that would make gasoline red, it might somehow do something. I told you I was getting desperate.
So what are you going to use for dye?
Well, I asked Fred what to use. All he could think of was iodine. He gave me some, and I diluted it. Now, we'll see what color we get.
Oh, go right ahead. Oh, that's not very red. Put in some more. Oh, that's pretty good.
All right, let's see what happens.
As a matter of fact, at that moment, neither Midgley nor Kettering knew that they had, by merest chance, stumbled on the one element that would stop engine knock. It had nothing to do with the color of the gasoline. The iodine itself had done the trick. Iodine was much too expensive to use as an additive, but it led to the eventual discovery by Midgley of tetraethyl lead. The first tankful of ethyl gasoline was offered for sale in Dayton, Ohio in February of 1923. Ethyl gasoline climaxed the long struggle to reduce engine weight and at the same time improve car performance through better fuels. The results of this never-ending search have been spectacular indeed. Let's take a look, for example, at the 1927 Pierce Arrow. That engine weighed 1,200 pounds and developed 100 horsepower. The 1950 Ford engine also produced 100 horsepower, but it weighed only 600 pounds. The 1954 Oldsmobile develops 5 times the horsepower as the 1912 Olds, with no increase in the engine size. Today's white truck engine cuts engine weight by 1,000 pounds, increasing payloads by that amount thanks to the improvement in gasolines. In the 20s, many of these improvements were already well underway, and the motorists of that era were well aware of them. Yes, the 20s were wonderful for their nonsense, wonderful for their achievement, and wonderful for the memories they left us.
We were there. We lived it. Remember? Remember 1925? How the skirt lengths went higher? All the shirts that were lost in the Florida boom? And while the college crowd was dancing the black bottom, Amy Semple McPherson raised her voice against sin. 1926. Remember how shocked you were to read of Rudolph Valentino's death? But how quickly the It Girl made you forget? And the tear you shed for the Oakland, but rushed right down to see the new Pontiac. Gertrude Ederle swam the channel and became America's sweetheart. Dempsey forgot the duck. 1927, Lindbergh and the Spirit of St. Louis. Babe Ruth hit 60 home runs. The movies learned to talk. And we were still keeping cool with Coolidge. 1928, Shipwreck Kelly won the flagpole sitting championship. Mae West became Diamond Lil. The end of the month, Jack Benny bought his first Maxwell. 1929, you were moaning low, but you kept painting the clouds with sunshine. You haven't forgotten, have you? Why, how could you? Why, mister, that was only yesterday.
Breezing along with the breeze, breezing along.